Again, they are now just 3-7-1. They are in last place in the worst division in football. Dan Orlovsky was with us before the break. He held up an L to Max Kellerman. He's taken the L for all his takes defending Carson Wentz. And Max, I think it's time that, there it is again. It's time that Max responds.
Well, I think that's a Menchie thing for Dan Orlovsky to do. And obviously he has a very talented daughter. And all I'll say is I'm with you on Peterson. Stephen A's got to get in here, but I'm with you on Peterson. The defense played their guts out. When you go for it on 4th and 14 with 8:40 to go, down 11, you're saying I'm washing my hands of this whole thing. You're trying to get out of there. And that was awful, and he didn't use the run game at all. But I'll say this, Dan. When he had a clean pocket, he had a first down on the 50-yard line, he steps into it, has a linebacker on Goddard. Yeah. And like just how you said, hey, Wentz did something good. He should have completed a pass. The receiver dropped it. Bad outcome from a good play. He got a good outcome from a bad play, right? He winds up with a PI call because the linebacker is like trying to catch up to Goddard, and the ball was so underthrown, he winds up smacking into Goddard and gets a PI call. But like, how do you have a clean pocket? You step up and you underthrow your wide open tight end on a mismatch by that much. He does that all the time. So I think Peterson wants out, Wentz should be gone, and Roseman too.
Guys, things are not that complicated. The fact of the matter is Carson Wentz is having a very, very bad year. He looks absolutely awful, but he's only 28, and we saw greatness in him before. It is rare that you see greatness and it evaporates so quickly at such a young age, and that's it. Now, there's one thing when you were great, but then you get old, and as a result, age and attrition coupled with your diminished and deficient skills take fold altogether. It's another thing entirely when you're young and you just regress and you slide and you're having an absolutely awful year. You can resurrect yourself. I will remind you that there was a guy by the name of Nick Foles who was 11-2, if I remember correctly, as a starter under Chip Kelly. Disappeared for years because he was contaminated by Jeff Fisher. Looked absolutely positively awful, so much so that he actually contemplated retirement, but then was asked to come and be a backup in Philadelphia and ended up taking over after Carson Wentz got hurt and won the Super Bowl. And as a result, the next year, Carson Wentz gets hurt again with a 5-6 record. Nick Foles comes in, saves the day, gets them to the postseason, and delivers a win against the top-seeded Chicago Bears in the Windy City before losing to New Orleans in a divisional playoff game. That Nick Foles all of a sudden ends up getting a huge contract from Jacksonville. When he goes to Chicago, we were all applauding it. We were saying if they got the offensive line together, he would look great. There have been a bevy of instances throughout NFL history where there's been a quarterback who wasn't finished, was still relatively young, had exhibited greatness in the past, but they had fallen off and ultimately was able to correct themselves. Carson Wentz is 28, so I'm not giving up on him. I'm looking at Peterson, and it's not because of Peterson's inability to coach. It's because it appears he does not want to coach Carson Wentz. That was not his guy. That was not his choice. That's not the guy that he believes listens to what he wants done, how it wants done. And that marriage is the problem. Even though we could point to Howie Roseman drafting Jalen Hurts, I'll reiterate what I said earlier. This is the same Howie Roseman that took over after Chip Kelly was unceremoniously exiled. And Howie Roseman takes over, and he helps guide the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl. We don't look at them and say they have no talent on defense. They have no talent on offense. They don't have running backs. They don't have tight ends. They don't have a couple of wide receivers. We don't look at that. We look at health, and we look at the fact that Carson Wentz and Peterson,
long term, very similar to the Spurs. They're not a flashy team, with the exception of Aaron Rodgers, who will make a flashy play every once in a while. That's typically how the Spurs won their championships. They have an incredible fan base. They're always in the mix, and they're not in a large market. I feel like they've won championships. They have 4 Super Bowls. The San Antonio Spurs have 5 NBA titles. It just feels like there are so many similar comparisons, and each and every year, they just win. Like, you wonder how they do it. You know, the question is, they need more wide receivers. What's up with their defense? They still find ways to win. It just seems like they're the San Antonio Spurs of the NFL.
Well, I mean, that's a good comp if you look at another.
I feel like
sport.
that you're setting that up like to knock it down a little bit. You're like, well, that's a okay comp.
No, I'm saying that's a good comp. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just not like.
You're not excited about that?
No, I guess for me.
Your whole body energy just kind of just went out the window.
No,
well, that's a decent comp.
Because I find myself sometimes, even though I'm in this with y'all, whatever y'all want to call this, sports talk radio, media, whatever y'all call it with y'all name tags on the bottom say media, I get it. I'm in it with y'all, but sometimes I remove myself from it and I look at it from a player's objective and perspective, and I look at it and I say, I always expected this from them. Yeah. It's not like I never went into the season saying Green Bay going to be good or Green Bay's going to be. No, Green Bay's going to be fine. And so I'm not the type of person, as we always talk about, Jay, on and off line, I don't follow the narrative of what everybody else do. When everybody else starts saying, I'm like, y'all just doing that because somebody else is doing it. I never ever thought that they needed another receiver. I just never thought that. I always thought a guy who goes, I think he was, 26-3 last year, touchdown to interception ratio?
Yeah, like 26-4, something like
26-3, 26-4. A guy that does that and takes his team to the NFC Championship game. I mean, like, with a first-year head coach, like, come on. Who in their right mind would want to remove Aaron Rodgers from their team despite what diva-ish he is? Despite it. If he's a diva or not. Despite it.
I think one thing that Jay really brings up, which is instructive, is that, Key, you know this, and that is the old Packers general manager, Ron Wolf.
Yes, Ron.
Right? To your point, Jay said homegrown, right? That was his strategy. Yes,
every year.
They did sign the late, great Reggie White, which is one of the greatest free agent signings in NFL history. Free agency a little bit different back then than it is now. But the fact is they had a plan, and it worked for them. And even though Ron Wolf has departed that particular position, they have stuck to that plan. To your point, the narrative is go sign free agents. Let's get splashy in the draft. Let's hoard all these draft picks. Let's trade up. Same thing with the Spurs. We are who we are. We're not going to get a bunch of free agents. We have our system. We're going to do it. So whether it worked in the NBA to the tune of 5 NBA championships or to the tune of the Green Bay Packers, when you have a plan and it's working, tunnel vision is not the worst thing in the world.
And what Ron did for many years is he would draft a quarterback every single year because he would feel that there's not enough of them. And he would wind up maybe moving them, trading them, so he has assets and pieces there. And people just, it's so funny, though, the world that we live in now, it's just like as soon as something happens, the first thing people, this is what's going on. It's like, no, that's not really what's going on. Not at all.
Well, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And like I said before, as long as you have Aaron Rodgers, he makes things happen, man. He's the queen on the chessboard. He can move in so many different directions, and he's a game changer.
Could you imagine the Green Bay Packers without Aaron Rodgers? The only reason why you could imagine the Green Bay Packers without Brett Favre in the end is because you finally saw Aaron Rodgers. But you couldn't imagine the Green Bay Packers in the end without seeing Aaron Rodgers. Once you saw him, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. I understand. I see why they moved on from Brett. Because even when they moved on from Brett was still cooking at that point. He just was 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I don't know if I'm coming. I don't know if I'm going.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, well, they're tired of dealing with that. They moved on to the guy they drafted in the first round. But we don't really know what that guy is. Oh, we do know what he is now. Smart move by him. You know that Jordan Love ain't nowhere near close to Aaron Rodgers.
Indeed. Two things there. Rodgers said, I'm not worried about who they draft because nobody can beat me out anyway, which I love that swagger. And the second,
same way I always felt too.
Such a boss.
Love the confidence. And the second thing, to Jay's point, I just actually thought of this, and I think it's just so interesting that he chose the Spurs, right? Throughout the entire Spurs dynasty, and I understand there's Kawhi there on the end. I get it when Kawhi was the NBA Finals MVP in their last championship. But for the majority of the time that Coach Pop has been there, it has been two guys, Duncan and Robinson. And for the majority of the time here in the last 25 years for the Packers, it has been two guys, Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. So I think that comparison is very apt.
And they getting ready at some point. They're getting ready to extend this dude.
Oh, no doubt.
They're going to extend
He's going to play into his 40s.
Legendary.
Yeah, he's going to pick up another $250 million real quick from him. Watch what I tell you. It's coming. It's coming. I smell it right around the corner, Jay. They're going to turn it in with no problem at all because who wouldn't want this dude, man?
I agree.
I would take him with his left arm because it's probably good too.
I don't know if it's as good as Mahomes, but we'll have to wait and see. I would certainly give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of the doubt. Keyshawn, J. Will Zubin, presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Get your quote at Progressive.com today. Speaking of the Packers, on the way, we'll be joined by a former Packers center and a Super